Hello, 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 you guys. Welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm using a different camera. I was asked by a subscriber that when I do certain instructional videos, if I could try to use a different camera because of the zooming in and out. Look at that. Look at that, guys. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to be using this camera from now on. Oh, yeah. Anyways. Whew. So, today in the kitchen, we are going to be doing something my grandma and great-grandma did all the time. Chicken stock. Chicken stock. Now, I've made this particular chicken stock quite a bit on my own, and I used to make it with my grandma and great-grandma all the time when I was little. So I'm going to walk you through how my grandma and my great-grandma did it. They preferred to use chicken pieces. The whole carcasses, they did use them and would make stuff out of them after they had been used to cook, or like when they would make a stuffed chicken or something like that. But my grandma told me one time that a lot of times they just threw the carcass to the pigs, and they preferred to use pieces. These are leg pieces, thigh pieces, things like that, because the bones in them are bigger and it's easier to clean, and they always had so many chicken scraps and pieces and parts that it was easier for them to make it this way out of parts and pieces. So that's what I'm doing in here. And you always want to have between 8 to 15 pounds of chicken pieces. If it's, you know, more than 10 pounds of chicken pieces and up to 15 pounds, the chicken stock will be the thicker, more gelatinous chicken stock. Whereas if it's less than 10 pounds but more than 8 pounds, you're just going to get a nice thick, juicy chicken stock, and that's what I'm going for. In here I have, it was 9.98 pounds. It's $13 worth of chicken in here. $13.27 is what the thing said. Worth of chicken in here. I'm going to let it defrost for a little bit. And my grandma and great-grandma, it always took 2 days worth of cooking. They didn't have Instapots. So I'm going to show you this and the way they did it, and the way they did it without Instapots. So that's what I'm doing. I've got, like I said, it was 9.97 or 98 pounds of chicken. Frozen, unfrozen, doesn't matter. These are frozen. So I'm going to put a little bit of hot water on them and let them defrost just a tiny, 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 tiny bit. Just enough that they'll be able to slip out of the bag. And then we'll start the cooking process, and I'll bring you back for that. Alright guys, we'll be back. Alright guys, I think we're back. This is a new camera. But one thing's for sure, the zoom. We got no more fuzzies. Alright, in here is that almost 10 pounds of chicken. And this is my 16-quart Cuisinart pot, stock pot. Put the chicken in the bottom and filled it up most of the way. Then you put in, it comes up to 2/3. I have 1/3 cup apple cider vinegar and 1/3 cup lemon juice. And then 2 tablespoons applewood smoked sea salt and a tablespoon of pepper. That is all my grandma and great-grandma ever used. Alright, let me grab a stirry. I'm going to get started on the mixing of those. Then we just put the lid on it, and we're going to let it boil. The way my grandma did it, the way I'm doing it right now, is it's a little after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I turn it on and I'm going to boil it for 8 hours. Now you don't want to have a full rolling boil for 8 hours. You want to bring it up to a rolling boil and then turn it way down so that you get just like a gentle bubble. A low boil, I guess. And then since you don't generally have 16 straight hours in a day to boil it, the way my grandma and great grandma always did it is they started it one day in the afternoon, like now. Wow, this is cool. Not once has this gone out of focus with me talking and moving my hands all around like my old camera used to. Anyways, they'd start it in the afternoon and they'd boil it for 8 hours, and then they'd turn it off and let it cool down. And then most of the time they did this during the winter because they'd bag up the parts and stick them in the, you know, freezer and then pull them out frozen, and they do it in the early part of winter. And then they would take it outside and just stick it right in the snowbank, because then you're not cooling off your refrigerator or your freezer, and it stays cold all night long and it doesn't freeze. That's air bubble escaping the chicken as it's defrosting. Don't worry guys, this is not a brewing brew pot. Those are just bubbles from air pockets. Anyways, they'd just let it sit in the snowbank overnight, and then they'd wake up in the morning, and as soon as they woke up in the morning, they'd bring it in. It wouldn't freeze, but it'd get good and cold, and then they'd bring it in right away in the morning when they woke up and turn it on and boil it again all day long for 8 hours, and then that's when you start the cleaning and the separating part. So tonight I'm going to be putting on the lid and boiling it for 8 hours this evening. I will put it in my fridge. I will let it cool off, well, my freezer actually. I'll let it cool off for about 2 hours so it's almost completely room temperature before I put it in my freezer. I don't put it outside in the snow. This is the 21st century, not the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I put it in the freezer. But then we're gonna bring it out and we'll boil it again tomorrow, and I'll just bring you back throughout the process as I'm doing this. Alright guys, we'll be back. Now that we've got a good heavy rolling boil going on, we're going to take off the lid and turn down the temperature. I have one of those knobs that goes by numbers, so I turn it down to 6, and it'll come down to like slightly above a simmer. If it uses those ones that does high, medium, and low, it'd be like medium low that I turn it to, and I just let it boil without the lid for, it's been boiling for 45 minutes to get up to this rolling boil, because remember, all that chicken was frozen. So I'll just let it boil for about another 5 hours, and then by then it'll be falling off the bones, and it'll be really nice. But you want to keep boiling it, because we're not only going after the meat, but we want to get into that marrow, and the longer you boil all of it together, the more nutrition you get for all of it, because we're going to be doing chicken stock, we're going to be doing canned chicken, and we'll put some spices and herbs in the chicken and cook it a little bit in a crock pot for like an hour or two, and then we'll can it. And then all the fat, the skin and the fat pieces and the cartilage and the scrap, the non-bone scrap, will be frozen for little individual doggy dinners, and I will show you how I do that. So this is going to be several videos in one, and then we break it down into each individual video for you, like I did with my 15-pound apples. Alright guys, we're going to keep letting this boil, and I'll bring you back for more stages. Alright, next what we do, we take a tongs and a meat fork, and we help the process along as much as we can, because the longer it can boil with those bones exposed, the better. Doesn't take much to help it along, and it just gives it longer for you to get that marrow and that cartilage, and the health benefits out of those bones for you. The best part about using chicken pieces rather than a whole cartridge, carcass, is you don't have the little tiny backbones and neck bones to worry about having to try to deal with. You've got larger leg bones and wing bones that you're dealing with, which makes it so that you also don't have to worry about missing any bones and somebody getting hurt. Now, if we had a farm, when I was done with everything and I started, you know, picking through it, and I had all the bones cleaned, and after I had got the bones completely, and all the meat completely cleaned of certain parts for the dogs, if we had a farm, I'd take the end result scrap to the pigs. But we don't have a farm, so in the end, the final end scrap product will unfortunately have to go in the garbage. I would put them in a compost pile if we had a farm and no pigs, but here in town I cannot put meat scraps and certain kinds of stuff in my compost bin because my HOA would not be happy with me. We already have enough problems with stray cats. Alright guys, I think I got them mostly pulled apart. We're going to let them boil. It's been 2.5 hours at this point. We're going to let them keep going for several more hours. All total, it's going to boil for about 16 hours, you guys. And it'll boil down, it will have started all the way up here, and by the time it's done, it'll be a little more than halfway full. So we'll probably end up with 6 or 7 quarts of really good chicken bone broth. Alright guys, we'll be back for more. Alright guys, this has been boiling for 8 hours. And as you can see, it's just a giant, it's all separated, completely separated. The bones are starting to pit and break down, and then what we do is we turn it off and let it cool for an hour, hour and a half, and then I'm going to stick it in my big chest freezer for the night. And then when I wake up at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, I'll pull it right out of the freezer and right onto the stove and start the whole process all over again and let it boil for another 8 hours. And at that point, the bones will have boiled down quite a bit more. Alright guys, we'll be back. Alright, here we go guys. It's the next day, and as you can see, that's pepper off of my lid. It didn't freeze in the freezer, but it did cool down quite a bit. I'm just going to give this a beginning stir. Look at all that fat and gel that's in there. It's getting to the point where we want it. Oh yeah. And then all I'm going to do is turn it on, bring it up to a rolling boil, bring it back down to a simmer again, and then let it cook again for 8 more hours today. Alright guys, we'll bring you back throughout the different processes. Alright guys, it's been boiling for another, well, simmer. I brought it up to a rolling boil and I turned it down to this low simmer. It's been doing that for another 5 hours today. And as you can see, the bones, ooh, this is hot. I hope you can see that. No. Hot. Let's get you in the light. See how the bone is starting to disintegrate there on the ends? We want to let it go for another, well, like I said, it's only been boiling for not even 5 hours, 4.5 hours. We're going to want to let this boil for the rest of the 8 hours, and when we're done, you will see just how much they disintegrate more. Alright guys, we'll be back. Alright guys, hey, it has been 8 hours, and this time I pulled the bone out and let it cool before I did this because they're hot and I didn't want to burn myself. Let's see if we can get, see that? How much it disintegrated on the one end and how much it disintegrated on the other. That is what it looks like after 16 hours of boiling. And you can see also how cloudy and jelly-like the water is. It's filled with the bone marrow and the gelatin and all the good nutrition that you want. So we're going to turn it off. We're going to let it cool for about 20 minutes. And then we're going to start the straining process. Alright guys, we'll be back. Alright guys, all I have here is a big pot, a big strainer, and a couple pieces of cheesecloth. And we want to start out by grabbing as much of just the stalk at first. And 1 spoonful at a time, or ladleful, whatever. Strain it. We'll be back when I get down to the meat, and we'll show you what to do from there. Alright, now that we've got almost all of the juice, the broth out of it, that's stuff that got picked up spoonful at a time as you're doing it. And you want to do the broth first just because it makes the overall straining process faster. Put all of our chicken in the middle. And then as we're going through it, pick through and grab bones. The big bones. Now, my grandma, she would, let's see, grab bones. I'm picking out of the big thing over here at the moment. Because I've got it split in half, and it'll make everything easier if I dig through it half. Now, my grandma and great-grandma did it when I was little. They had a farm, and like I had said before, they would take the bones, give them to the pigs. I don't have a farm, and chicken bones are not good for dogs or cats, so the chicken bones, unfortunately for me, go in the garbage. Sorry, there's a big pile of bones over here, and I'm picking through it. Picking through all this meat. Now, the cartilage end caps, here, I'll show you one. These cartilage end caps from the bones, you'll find them throughout. Those dogs can eat. So I put those off to the side for the dog. Because that's part of dog food. Because you're going to go through here and you're going to pull out skin and meat scraps and those cartilage end caps. Those cartilage end caps, see, are rather easy to pull out. Right there's that cartilage end cap. That's dog stuff. Pull out bones. You're gonna dig through the rest of this later after you've let it all cool down. But at the moment, we're just getting out bones. That way when we string this up, bones don't get in the way of it closing up and dripping. Okay, I think I got all the bones, you guys. Alright, you guys, I'm gonna get the rest of the meat in there and get it ready, and we'll be back. There we have it. All the meat is out, and then all we're going to do is let it sit and drip like this for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll close it up and pull it up with the string and tie it up and let it drip the rest of the way out, and then we'll set the meat off to the side for us to go through after it has completely cooled down to room temperature. At the most, it'll take about an hour to cool. You don't want to let it sit out any more than that, because then you start promoting the growth of bacteria. But we're going to let this sit, string it up, and let it cool. And then while the meat is cooling, we're going to prep and prepare and do the chicken broth. Alright guys, we'll be back. Okay, I'm still learning the new camera. I pushed buttons wrong, so I didn't get the clip of me gathering it up and bundling it up and getting it up. But there it is. And we let it drip. It'll drip for about 20 minutes, probably, before it stops dripping. The thing I wanted to show you, you see how thick that is in there? Let's see if I can get you maybe zoomed in so you can see a little better. See how thick that is as it drips in? That's the collagen from the bones and the cartilage and the fat, and that's what we wanted. We wanted that thick type of bone broth. This is bone broth at its best. So we're just gonna let this finish dripping, and we'll be back, you guys. Here's another great shot that shows you how thick that is. Alright guys, all I did was plop it out of the bag and into a cake pan. Spread it all out so it can start to cool. Set it off to the side. And when we get to that part, you're going to be getting very messy, so make sure you wash your hands completely when we get to the part where we start picking through the meat. At this moment, however, what we're doing is we've got our drippings. We got our cleaned, washed, sterilized jars ready to go. And we're just going to fill our jars up. We'll be back when I start that process. Alright guys, next stage, time to get nitty and gritty. Now make sure before you start this you've washed your hands up to here, because you never know if you're going to be brushing and germ transfer, and it's always just best. Secondly, when I wash my hands, I put the soap in my hands, and then I always, especially if I'm going to be working with food that I'm going to be canning, I always then put rubbing alcohol in my hand with the soap and then wash my hands with both. Then all you do is literally dig in, fat, 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 perfect piece of meat. Ooh, here's a good example of something you need to watch out for. See that? That is the kneecap cartilage. That's dog food. Fat, cartilage, meat. Meat. Look at this. You got whole big chunks of meat. Big pieces of meat. All you do is literally sit and, oh look, random bone, pull that cartilage off because that's really good for your dog. And that's all there is to it, guys. I'm going to sit and pick through this and clean it all, and I don't think you want to watch it because this is going to take me a while. Probably going to be doing this for half hour. So bring you back when we're all done, you guys. Here it is, all sorted and gone through. I have the canning chicken, and then the dog food chicken, and then I had more canning chicken here. Now there's so much of it. Let me back you up a little bit here. There's so much of it, I'm going to put this in a bigger crock pot. So we'll be back to show you what you do in the bigger crock pot, and that one there I'm going to get ready for canning for dog food. We'll be back, you guys. And here we go, you guys. This is all the good chicken, all the fat, all the skin, all the cartilage, connecting joints, everything all cleaned up and all cleaned out. I ended up with a lot more chicken than I thought, and I had to put it in a bigger crock pot, which is just fine. If you had it in that little crock pot like I did, the next step would be to add a half a cup of water. Yes, water. But because I have a big amount, I'm going to add a full cup of water. Now, water, because you don't want it to dry out, partially because you don't want it to dry out, and partially, mostly, because there's still fat and grease and juice and flavors all over this chicken, so it's going to end up flavoring the water. So don't worry about that. Next step, you add 2 teaspoons of pepper, and this is if you want herb. If you don't want herb, you just take and add that water, stir it all up, cook it for a little while, like 45 minutes to an hour on high, until you get it all heated up and warmed through and nice and you'll see it nice and tasty and juicy again. One of my jars just popped. Yay! I'm also canning the chicken broth over here. It just came out of the canner. Alright, anyways, pepper. And then 2 teaspoons of pepper. And we want 2 tablespoons of garlic. You can do, like I said, unflavored. The reason we're adding pepper is when it was cooking, pepper again, is because when it was cooking in the pot and boiling in the pot with all the other meat. Oops, sorry guys. I'm glad I have this camera because I know it's focused. The pepper, when it was boiling, part of the flavor of the pepper was killed when it was going through that 16 hours of boiling. So we want to add more pepper. So 2 teaspoons of pepper, 3 tablespoons of garlic powder. No, 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. Blah! Let me start all over, guys. 2 teaspoons of pepper, 2 tablespoons of garlic powder, 3 tablespoons each parsley, basil, and oregano. Now at this point you're going to want a big sturdy spoon because you got to remember that a lot of this is shredded. So the best way to mix it is a big sturdy spoon. Like the big sturdy fork. You want a big sturdy spoon. A decent big sturdy spoon, stainless steel one, and fork are musts in a kitchen. I might need to add a little bit more water because it's a little bit dry. So at this point I have a cup and a half of water. Now remember, it's going to become its own chicken broth. All nice and mixed up. And we're going to put this on high, put the lid on it. And cooking it will also bring out some of the liquid and the juice, and it'll all work out really well. You'll see. Alright, guys. Lid on, turn it on high, and we'll be back in about an hour. Alright, guys, here we go. Now, the herb chicken cooked for an hour and a half. And it's all nice and warm and juicy and all ready to go. And we've got our jars here washed and sterilized and all ready to go. And our lids washed and in a thing of hot apple cider vinegar water. And then we've got water to go in here. Now we just use plain water because this chicken is still full of grease and fat. So all we're going to do is fill it up 3/4 of the way. And the reason why we do it 3/4 of the way is because unless you have a huge family, there's only 4 of us. Unless you have a huge family, like 6 or more, 3/4 of a jar is more than enough chicken for most any project you're gonna do. And then you have leftover chicken stock because you separate them and drain them, and then you can freeze the chicken stock for soups. Alright, then you just fill it up with water. Bubble. Cheesecloth, get the top ring and the threads always, and then lid. I need to go get ring. I don't have rings. And my lid, and I'll go get a ring. Hang on. Boom. And this is ready for the canner. Alright guys, I'm going to get the rest of these done and I'll be back. Alright guys, there we have it. All 5 jars of chicken. Seasoned and packed and debubbled and degreased and lid on and all ready to go. Put it in our canner. And fill it up. I probably put way more in there than I need, but I would rather have more water and it take longer and it get boiling longer. To me, that's okay. And we check to make sure that this can be seen through, so there's no blockage. Check to make sure that this is popping up and down safely. Line up your arrows. Close it up. Then I turn it on medium high and let it come up to a boil. And then this will vent full steam. I'll bring you back for that step by step. Oh yeah, besides the 5 jars, 5 quarts of chicken that I have, I also had the last 2 quarts of chicken stock that went in there. So let's get that through. Alright guys. Hello guys and welcome back. We are doing the final count of everything that we got out of our chicken. Remember, it was just shy of 10 pounds. It was like 9.7 or, I mean 9.97 or 9.98. I can't remember because I just can't remember. But I do know that it was like $13 worth of chicken. So $13 worth of chicken got me all of this. I got 9 quarts of really good chicken bone broth because we boiled it, remember, for 16 hours. And parts of the bones had disintegrated into the bone broth, and that's what our goal is. Next, I got 5 quarts of shredded chicken. Now this shredded chicken works great. I do chicken bechamel, or I do chicken pot pies, or chicken shepherd pie. One of my favorite things to do is pop it open, strain the juice from it and the chicken, and then I plop the chicken into a pot with some barbecue sauce, and basically you're just reheating it. And I have barbecued shredded chicken in 10 minutes. And then 5 quarts of dog food. Now again, I'm going to say this. This is rogue canning, pure rogue canning. There is no, I'm not even on the camera screen. Wow, I wonder how much of that other stuff I missed, you guys. Here's a look at the bone broth. Since I missed, I'm not sure if I got that on screen. And then the shredded chicken. How beautiful that is. Yeah, gorgeous. Anyways, dog food. Dog food is not in any way recommended. It is purely considered rogue canning, but I have been doing this lots. I watched my grandma do it. Granted, my grandma and great-grandma never had Thrive Life. They had raw vegetables, but the Thrive Life works just as well. The Thrive Life just ends up sucking up all of the liquid inside, which is good, because then it makes the vegetables, they fall apart better for the dog, and they're easier for the dog to eat. So that's what I got. I got 9 quarts of bone broth, 5 quarts of shredded chicken, and 5 pints of dog food. All for $13. Alright guys, I hope you liked this series on wonderful what to do with 10 pounds of chicken. I'm going to keep doing these series because my 15 pounds of apples has really become popular, and my apple juice alone is over 1,000 views, and I know that for some people that doesn't seem like very many views, but when my average videos are getting 200 to 300 views, and sometimes it takes months for them to get to that amount of views. 1,000 views for me is exciting. So I'm happy. So all my other videos in that series are starting to climb and views. So I've got the chicken one here, 10 pounds of chicken. If you have any other ideas of things you'd like to see me, another series of things you'd like to see me do, leave a comment down below and let me know. Hey, I'd like to see you do what you do with a whole turkey, or I'd like to see, well, I think you've seen me do what I do with ham. When I got my Zacon hams, I chop them up and can them. I have a video for that. You'll find that in my canning playlist. But yeah, thanks guys for coming along, and we'll see you in the next one. And remember everyone, stay positive. You can do it too. Bye.